Welcome into CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Jacqueline D'Agostino, and happy International Women's Day.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. That's so nice.
Beautiful day today, and beautiful March Madness.
Yes.
Right, which is upon us. The countdown to Selection Sunday, moving along.
Yes, and the major conference championships, those are underway, and we're all locked in. And especially Jerry Palm, he's locked in because he's got to update the bracketology. You know how that goes. We're constantly updating the bracketology to see if UCLA makes the one line, but I digress. The NCAA Tournament automatic bids are slowly filling in. Patriot, Big Sky, and Southland Championship games are on tap for tonight, and it seems like automatic bid and Gonzaga are synonymous with one another. The Zags punching their ticket to the tourney for the 24th straight time. Gonzaga big man Drew Timme certainly helping keep that streak alive, which brings us to Naismith Watch, presented by Jersey Mike's. And Gonzaga's versus St. Mary's round 3, it was the Zags who walked away with the trophy. Drew Timme led Gonzaga to a 26-point win over St. Mary's to win the WCC, the largest margin of victory in the history of the tournament championship. Drew Timme making history himself. He is now Gonzaga's all-time leading scorer. He brought his total career points to 2,210, passing the current record of 2,196 for the most in Gonzaga's men's basketball history. The WCC single season points per game leaders, Drew Timme there averaging 20.5 points per game, just behind Colby Ross and Cameron Shelton. In that game against St. Mary's, he scored 14 of his 18 in the first half alone. He played just 20 minutes for the third time this season. Gonzaga just on a roll, punching their ticket to the big dance once again. Gonzaga has won 4 straight WCC tournament titles and is making its 24th straight NCAA tournament appearance. That is the 19th conference tourney win under Mark Self. The Zags have won 9 straight games since losing to St. Mary's at the first week of February. And we have Jerry Palm and Chip Patterson joining us here to talk about the Zags and their hot streak. They've already punched their ticket, so we're going to talk about that and then also talk about some teams who still have some more work to do. In the Eye on College Basketball podcast, gentlemen, in the feed, it has the fire flames next to Gonzaga, that emoji, because they're on this hot streak, winning 9 straight with that dominant win over St. Mary's. Jerry, we'll start with you. What does that performance say about Gonzaga right before we get into tournament time?
Yeah, ever since they lost to Loyola Marymount, they've really picked up their game. That was like a wake-up call for Gonzaga, and they have done very well. Now they've beaten St. Mary's twice, and what they did to them yesterday, just a complete evisceration, was just classic. I mean, it was Gonzaga made a statement that they are a team to watch in this NCAA tournament. They are a team capable of winning the NCAA tournament. And that isn't the only time this year we've seen it. They have a win over Alabama. That was the overall #1 seed the committee gave us on February 18th. And that team has one loss since then. So, this is a team that I've got them on a 2-line today. They're going to be very dangerous when they get to the NCAA tournament, especially with the role that they're on right now and all of these veteran players that they have.
Yeah, this has been one of the best teams in the country since February 1st. You go back and you look at this run that the Zags are on. They are 10-1 with the only defeat coming in overtime to St. Mary's on the road. The offensive efficiency has been the best in the country in that 11-game span, and even the overall efficiency. They're not an elite defensive team, but they've been good enough, and they have taken the steps to be able to ratchet that end up so that they are, according to BartTorvik.com, the #1 team in the country since February 1st. And here's what I'm really excited to look at, because in 2021, Gonzaga was undefeated on Selection Sunday, the #1 overall seed. In 2022, Gonzaga was the #1 overall seed. They did have 3 losses. And now, as Jerry projects them to be on the 2 line, I wonder if Gonzaga is coming in a little bit under the radar to maybe go on a deep run, because we have seen players like Anton Watson really come into their own. Julian Strother has really stepped up his game. This is a group around Drew Timme that has gotten so much better, and I wonder if they're going to be playing with a little bit less pressure, not being that #1 overall seed. Definitely a team I'm going to be looking at to make a deep run when I'm filling out my bracket.
All right, the Big Ten tourney that starts today. A lot of bubble teams that we're talking about in the Big Ten. We got Wisconsin and Ohio State tonight. Wisconsin, you can see there, is one of Jerry's first 4 out teams. Now, Jerry, we talked about this before with the Badgers struggling to win 2 games in a row. Now, say they do beat Ohio State, then next up they have Iowa. If they go 1-1 in the tournament and lose to Iowa, what do you think happens to Wisconsin in that instance?
Well, I don't really like their chances. I mean, they need to beat better teams away from home, which they've done actually this year. They're lucky the Big Ten tournament's not at Madison because they've been terrible on their home court this year. 6 home losses in this year is just incredible. All they have to do is flip 2 of those, and we're not even talking about Wisconsin. But, now they've got work to do. Ohio State is a young team. But a good team, and especially Bryce Sensabaugh. So, and they're a pretty athletic team, which could give Wisconsin some problems. They need to play well and win this game, and they probably need to beat Iowa, too, before we're having a serious conversation about Wisconsin as an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, we might be able to put that serious conversation on the back burner. The Badgers are not even the betting favorites in this opening round game against Ohio State. As Jerry mentioned, a young team. That has been part of Ohio State head coach Chris Holtmann's response to a 9-game losing streak in the middle of the season, because he's turned not just to Bryce Sensabaugh, but to other freshmen, made them a bigger part of the rotation. In the regular season finale for Ohio State, the Buckeyes had 4 freshman starters. And yes, Wisconsin did beat Ohio State earlier this season, but it was only by 5 points, and it was in the midst of this 9-game losing streak. I mean, yep, Wisconsin probably does need to beat Iowa too. I'm always going to trust Jerry Palm's expertise on all things bracketology, but I'll tell you that as we sit here today, I don't even have confidence that they're going to be able to make it out of the opening round. I think Ohio State could take down Wisconsin today.
Another first 4 out team is UNC. They have 1 quad 1 win, and if UNC does get to the ACC Tournament Championship and they don't win it, is just an appearance in the ACC Championship game enough, Jerry, to kind of make them feel a little bit more comfortable before Selection Sunday?
Yeah, maybe. It'll depend on what other teams do. And as I like to say, the only sure thing is the sure thing, right? So go out and win the tournament. But in order for them to get there, of course, they have to beat Boston College today, and then they get Virginia. If they beat Virginia again, now that's 2 wins over Virginia, one of which on a neutral court. So that's obviously a quad 1 win and a big win for North Carolina. The next game would be either Clemson or maybe North Carolina State. They would like to see North Carolina State because that's a better opponent for their resume than Clemson is. If they beat Virginia and North Carolina State, they're in a much more comfortable position on Saturday in the championship game. Maybe they won't have to win it, but it always depends on what other teams do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jerry, because the way that Clemson is just got an awful resume and the way that the net ratings are being hurt for the Tigers and their own chances and their own postseason hopes and dreams. It's like North Carolina not only has to take care of its own business, which for a team that has been so inconsistent throughout the year, that is going to be something that we cannot bet on. They also need the right results elsewhere, but there is a path, however narrow it may be. And I'll tell you my biggest point of interest in this Boston College game, a game where North Carolina is a double-digit favorite, is going to be how the Tar Heels look, because they've been so up and down. They've been mercurial. We don't know whether it's a team that runs through Armando Bacot or whether a team that runs through RJ Davis, whether Caleb Love is going to shoot 22 times and hit 11 of them, or whether he's only going to hit 3. And so what kind of attitude is North Carolina bringing to Greensboro, a building that, if North Carolina can advance deep in the tournament, will turn Carolina blue? I think that the way that they handle themselves against Boston College will tell me a lot about whether I believe North Carolina can navigate that narrow path with a win against Virginia, a win against NC State, and an appearance in the championship game. We can sit here and talk about it like, oh yeah, this is all they have to do, then they're in the tournament, but they've still got to take care of business. I'm looking at their form with a sharp eye here today.
And just continuing down the list of Jerry Palm's first 4 out teams, we got to talk about Arizona State, a 6th seed in the Pac-12 tourney. They had Oregon State. They're a double-digit favorite here. If they beat Oregon State and then go on to lose to USC, is there still hope for ASU, Jerry?
Well, not a lot, but again, it will depend on what other teams do. That would be 3 losses to USC, a team that they might be competing with for a spot in the bracket. That's not going to be a good thing for them. I think they are going to need to beat USC and maybe go even further than that if they want to be in the NCAA tournament. There's a lot of damage on this tournament resume. They do have that win at Arizona. They beat Creighton, shorthanded Creighton, but still a good win. But there just isn't a lot. They've lost a handful of games to teams that are not going to the NCAA tournament. They have a couple quad 3 losses. The losses are dragging them down. The league drags them down because it's not a very strong league this year once you get past the top 2. And the fact that they couldn't beat either Los Angeles school in 4 tries really hurts. So they may get a 5th try, and they may have to win that game before we can even really consider Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State might have actually been fortunate with the way this bracket draws. Just the fact that USC is a team that is currently projected to be in the field of 68. And I agree with Jerry that if Arizona State is able to avoid an absolutely catastrophic defeat to Oregon State and get into that next round matchup against USC, then we might be looking at Bobby Hurley's team and say, all right, if you can beat USC in this spot, then maybe you can be taking USC's position in the field. I would also add to, all of the bubble implications that we're talking about here. I don't think that we've got a true hot seat situation, but it would at least be a warm seat, as this has been a disappointing performance from an Arizona State team this season that has not quite lived up to expectations. Making the NCAA tournament once again would do a lot to be able to cool any of that chatter. Look, it starts with Oregon State. Do not lose to Beaver Fever. And then you get that great matchup against USC with the stakes that might not have been there if you had to draw Oregon, but at least you beat USC, quality win, give yourself a shot on Selection Sunday.
Another first 4 out team, Oklahoma State, and the Big 12, the field there is loaded. They're facing their in-state rival, Oklahoma. Say they do beat Oklahoma. Jerry, do you think this Oklahoma State team has it in them to beat Texas if they get to that point?
Well, yes. I mean, they've had the kind of year where you think that that's possible. And this whole league, anybody can beat anybody, really. But they may have to. The problem for Oklahoma State is they're only 17-14. They've got 2 quad 2 losses and a quad 3 loss to Southern Illinois. And that's kind of what distinguishes them from West Virginia, who's but one of West Virginia's losses is quad 1. They have a quad 2 loss at home to Texas Tech, who they will play tonight. But Oklahoma State at 17-14 probably isn't going to get it done. 1-1 in the Big 12 tournament may not get it done. They may have to beat Texas just to have enough wins, just a good enough record to get selected, because at some point, no matter how good your schedule is, you have to have a good enough record to get picked. And right now, I don't think Oklahoma State does.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has really been backsliding since about the middle of February. They are 1-5 in their last 6. And the only one that they have there is against a Texas Tech team that we are now learning more and more is just really unraveling here at the end of the Mark Adams era. Mark Adams, of course, has been suspended from the team, and more stories about just sort of where that locker room has been throughout the year have indicated that is not a quality Big 12 team. So if that's your only win that you have dating back to February 12th, then the form that you are bringing into the Big 12 tournament is so far from the form that got you the wins that allowed you to even be in the bubble position. I look at Oklahoma State as a team that, yes, every win should count, every game should count for your selection in the NCAA tournament, but my confidence that they would be able to go on to beat Texas or even maybe get past Porter Moser's Oklahoma team, it is low, because we just have not seen quality results out of this group, again, over the last six games.
Another first-round matchup in the Big 12 tournament. We have West Virginia and Texas Tech. WVU coming off a win over K-State. Jerry, what version of West Virginia do you think we're going to see when they take on Texas Tech?
I think we'll see hungry West Virginia. They should be hungry because, there's a chance if they lose this game that they'll miss the tournament. Now, if they win, I like their chances of getting in. Of all of the bubble teams, I like West Virginia's chances the best. But, they've got to win this game because, as Chip pointed out, Texas Tech is reeling. They're a mess on and off the court. And West Virginia's just got to put the hammer down and then take their chances with whatever happens after this. But, West Virginia, they don't necessarily have to beat Kansas. Obviously, that would do it for them. But they do have to beat Texas Tech. And then that gets them to 19-13. With the schedule that they have played, that's probably going to be good enough to get them in, even at 19-14 with a loss to Kansas.
Yeah, I like the way that this West Virginia team has been able to really turn it on down the stretch. Only lost by 2 to Kansas in Lawrence a little while ago, won the last 2 games of the season against Iowa State and Kansas State. This is a physical team. They want to get it done at the rim. They want to make drives to the basket. They want to beat you up. And in a game where want to and physicality is going to be very much at the forefront, then yeah, I will take the West Virginia team that has been playing with a lot of great energy and a lot of great urgency over a Texas Tech team that, as we've mentioned here, is really starting to move in the other direction and get off the rails pretty quickly. As far as a West Virginia-Kansas game, I don't like their odds, but the quality of this team, the form of this team is the kind of thing where even if I don't look at any resume numbers, I have watched West Virginia play for the better part of the last 2 months or so, and their competitiveness against teams that we know to be NCAA tournament teams tells me this Mountaineers team has the form and the quality of an NCAA tournament team.
All right, Jerry Palm and Chip Patterson joining us to talk about some of the bubble teams as we get closer and closer to Selection Sunday. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. You can find Jerry Palm's bracketology over on CBSSports.com. And make sure you check out the Eye on College Basketball podcast with Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander. Plus, Chip Patterson also making an appearance there this week, and some other guests. The crew is giving you tournament previews for the Big East, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, SEC, and the Big Ten. And we want you to join our CBS Sports HQ Bracket Challenge so you can compete against us. My track record with brackets is not the best, but I'm going to give it a go. Jeremy as well. So you can scan the QR code, sign up, and compete against us. Again, make it easy. Scan the QR code on your screen.
So modest.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.